You're on a roll, Saint, because today is the last day we're reading from First Samuel. If you have been with me from day one, that means you have read all the books from Genesis to First Samuel. Book one of the Narrative Reading Bible covered the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We are in book two, and we've already read Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. And now we're wrapping up First Samuel. Celebrate that. That is super exciting. So today we're going to be reading pages 163 to 175 of book two. And of course, that means tomorrow we're going to be diving into Second Samuel. So let's finish our reading today, immerse ourselves in the scripture, and remember, we're reading from the Berean Standard Bible translation. Enjoy today's reading.
So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David remained in Horesh, while Jonathan went home. Then the Ziphites came up to Saul at Gibeah and said, "Is not David hiding among us in the strongholds at Horesh, on the hill of Hachilah, south of Jeshimon? Now, O king, come down whenever your soul desires, and we will be responsible for delivering him into your hand." "May you be blessed by the Lord," replied Saul, "for you have had compassion on me. Please go and prepare further. Investigate and watch carefully where he goes and who has seen him there, for I am told that he is extremely cunning. Observe and find out all the places where he hides. Then come back to me with certainty, and I will go with you. If he is in the land, I will search him out among all the clans of Judah." So they set out and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon in the Arabah, south of Jeshimon, and Saul and his men went to seek him. When David was told about it, he went down to the rock and stayed in the wilderness of Maon. And when Saul heard of this, he pursued David there. Saul was proceeding along one side of the mountain, and David and his men along the other side. Even though David was hurrying to get away, Saul and his men were closing in on David and his men to capture them. Then a messenger came to Saul saying, "Come quickly, for the Philistines have raided the land." So Saul broke off his pursuit of David and went to meet the Philistines. That is why that place is called Selah Hamalakoth. And David went up from there and lived in the strongholds of En-Gedi. After Saul had returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, "David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." So Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to look for David and his men in the region of the rocks of the wild goats. Soon Saul came to the sheepfolds along the road, where there was a cave, and he went in to relieve himself, and David and his men were hiding in the recesses of the cave. So David's men said to him, "This is the day about which the Lord said to you, 'Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do with him as you wish.'" Then David crept up secretly and cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Afterward, David's conscience was stricken because he had cut off the corner of Saul's robe. So he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing to my master, the Lord's anointed. May I never lift my hand against him, since he is the Lord's anointed." With these words, David restrained his men, and he did not let them rise up against Saul. Then Saul left the cave and went on his way. After that, David got up, went out of the cave, and called out to Saul, "My lord the king." When Saul looked behind him, David bowed face down in reverence and said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, 'Look, David intends to harm you'? Behold, this day you have seen with your own eyes that the Lord delivered you into my hand in the cave. I was told to kill you, but I spared you and said, 'I will not lift my hand against my Lord, since he is the Lord's anointed.' See, my father, look at the corner of your robe in my hand. For I cut it off, but I did not kill you. See and know that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands. I have not sinned against you, even though you are hunting me down to take my life. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord take vengeance on you, but my hand will never be against you. As the old proverb says, wickedness proceeds from the wicked, but my hand will never be against you. Against whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog? A flea? May the Lord be our judge and decide between you and me. May he take notice and plead my case and deliver me from your hand." When David had finished saying these things, Saul called back, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" Then Saul wept aloud and said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me with good, though I have rewarded you with evil. And you have shown this day how well you have dealt with me. For when the Lord delivered me into your hand, you did not kill me. When a man finds his enemy, does he let him go away unharmed? May the Lord reward you with good for what you have done for me this day. Now I know for sure that you will be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hands. So now, swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants or wipe out my name from my father's house." So David gave his oath to Saul. Then Saul returned home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. When Samuel died, all Israel gathered to mourn for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David set out and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was a very wealthy man, with 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband, a Calebite, was harsh and evil in his dealings. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So David sent 10 young men and instructed them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel, greet him in my name and say to him, 'Long life to you, and peace to you and your house, and to all that belongs to you. Now I hear that it is time for shearing. When your shepherds were with us, we did not harass them, and nothing of theirs was missing the whole time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. So let my young men find favor with you, for we have come on the day of a feast. Please give whatever you can afford to your servants and to your son David." When David's young men arrived, they relayed all these words to Nabal on behalf of David. Then they waited. But Nabal asked them, "Who is David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants these days are breaking away from their masters. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers, and give them to these men whose origin I do not know?" So David's men turned around and went back, and they relayed to him all these words. And David said to his men, "Strap on your swords." So David and all his men put on their swords, and about 400 men followed David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's young men informed Nabal's wife Abigail, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he scolded them. Yet these men were very good to us. When we were in the field, we were not harassed, and nothing of ours went missing the whole time we lived among them. They were a wall around us, both day and night, the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now consider carefully what you must do, because disaster looms over our master and all his household, for he is such a scoundrel that nobody can speak to him." Then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 butchered sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs. She loaded them on donkeys and said to her young men, "Go ahead of me. I will be right behind you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As Abigail came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, she saw David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had just finished saying, "In vain I have protected all that belonged to this man in the wilderness. Nothing that belongs to him has gone missing, yet he has paid me back evil for good. May God punish David, and ever so severely, if I let one of Nabal's men survive until morning." When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off the donkey, fell face down, and bowed before him. She fell at his feet and said, "My lord, may the blame be on me alone, but please let your servant speak to you. Hear the words of your servant. My lord should pay no attention to this scoundrel Nabal, for he lives up to his name. His name means fool, and folly accompanies him. I, your servant, did not see my lord's young men whom you sent. Now, my lord, as surely as the Lord lives, and you yourself live, the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and avenging yourself with your own hand. May your enemies and those who seek harm for my lord be like Nabal. Now let this gift your servant has brought to my lord be given to the young men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense, for the Lord will surely make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because he fights the Lord's battles. May no evil be found in you as long as you live. And should someone pursue you and seek your life, then the life of my Lord will be bound securely by the Lord your God in the bundle of the living. But he shall fling away the lives of your enemies like stones from a sling. When the Lord has done for my Lord all the good he promised, and when he has appointed you ruler over Israel, then my Lord will have no remorse or guilt of conscience over needless bloodshed and revenge. And when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, may you remember your maidservant." Then David said to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me this day. Blessed is your discernment, and blessed are you, because today you kept me from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has restrained me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, then surely no male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by morning light." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him, and he said to her, "Go home in peace. See, I have heeded your voice and granted your request." When Abigail returned to Nabal, there he was in the house, holding a feast fit for a king, in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing until morning light. In the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him about these events, and his heart failed within him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal dead. On hearing that Nabal was dead, David said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has upheld my cause against the reproach of Nabal, and has restrained his servant from evil. For the Lord has brought the wickedness of Nabal down upon his own head." Then David sent word to Abigail, asking for her in marriage. When his servants came to Abigail at Carmel, they said, "David has sent us to take you as his wife." She arose, then bowed face down and said, "Here is your maidservant, ready to serve and to wash the feet of my Lord's servants." So Abigail hurried and got on a donkey, and attended by 5 of her maidens, she followed David's messengers and became his wife. David had also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, so she and Abigail were both his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Palti son of Laish, who was from Galim. Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah and said, "Is not David hiding on the hill of Hachilah, opposite Jeshimon?" So Saul, accompanied by 3,000 chosen men of Israel, went down to the wilderness of Ziph to search for David there. Saul camped beside the road at the hill of Hachilah opposite Jeshimon, but David was living in the wilderness. When he realized that Saul had followed him there, David sent out spies to verify that Saul had arrived. Then David set out and went to the place where Saul had camped. He saw the place where Saul and Abner son of Ner, the general of his army, had lain down. Saul was lying inside the inner circle of the camp, with the troops camped around him. And David asked Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, "Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp?" "I will go with you," answered Abishai. That night David and Abishai came to the troops, and Saul was lying there asleep in the inner circle of the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head, and Abner and the troops were lying around him. Abishai said to David, "Today God has delivered your enemy into your hand. Now, therefore, please let me thrust the spear through him into the ground with one stroke. I will not need to strike him twice." But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who can lift a hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?" David added, "As surely as the Lord lives, the Lord himself will strike him down. Either his day will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But the Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Instead, take the spear and water jug by his head, and let us go." So David took the spear and water jug by Saul's head, and they departed. No one saw them or knew about it, nor did anyone wake up. They all remained asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. Then David crossed to the other side, and stood atop the mountain at a distance. There was a wide gulf between them. And David shouted to the troops and to Abner son of Ner, "Will you not answer me, Abner?" "Who calls to the king?" Abner replied. So David said to Abner, "You are a man, aren't you? And who in Israel is your equal?" Why then did you not protect your lord the king when one of the people came to destroy him? This thing you have done is not good. As surely as the Lord lives, all of you deserve to die, since you did not protect your lord, the Lord's anointed. Now look around. Where are the king's spear and water jug that were by his head?" Then Saul recognized David's voice and asked, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" "It is my voice, my lord and king," David said. And he continued, "Why is my lord pursuing his servant? What have I done? What evil is in my hand? Now please, may my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, then may he accept an offering. But if men have done it, may they be cursed in the presence of the Lord. For today they have driven me away from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, 'Go, serve other gods.' So do not let my blood fall to the ground far from the presence of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to look for a flea, like one who hunts a partridge in the mountains." Then Saul replied, "I have sinned. Come back, David, my son. I will never harm you again, because today you considered my life precious. I have played the fool and have committed a grave error." "Here is the king's spear," David answered. "Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. As surely as I valued your life today, so may the Lord value my life and rescue me from all trouble." Saul said to him, "May you be blessed, David, my son. You will accomplish great things and will surely prevail." So David went on his way, and Saul returned home. David, however, said to himself, "One of these days now I will be swept away by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than to escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will stop searching for me all over Israel, and I will slip out of his hand." So David set out with his 600 men and went to Achish, son of Maoch, the king of Gath. David and his men settled in Gath with Achish. Each man had his family with him, and David had his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail of Carmel, the widow of Nabal. And when Saul learned that David had fled to Gath, he no longer searched for him. Then David said to Achish, "If I have found favor in your eyes, let me be assigned a place in one of the outlying towns, so I can live there. For why should your servant live in the royal city with you?" That day Achish gave him Ziklag, and to this day it still belongs to the kings of Judah. And the time that David lived in Philistine territory amounted to 1 year and 4 months. Now David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. From ancient times, these people had inhabited the land extending to Shur and Egypt. Whenever David attacked a territory, he did not leave a man or woman alive, but he took the flocks and herds, the donkeys, camels, and clothing. Then he would return to Achish, who would ask him, "What have you raided today?" And David would reply, "The Negev of Judah," or "The Negev of Jerahmeel," or "The Negev of the Kenites." David did not leave a man or woman alive to be brought to Gath, for he said, "Otherwise they will report us, saying, 'This is what David did.'" And this was David's custom the whole time he lived in Philistine territory. So Achish trusted David, thinking, "Since he has made himself an utter stench to his people Israel, he will be my servant forever." Now in those days the Philistines gathered their forces for warfare against Israel. So Achish said to David, "You must understand that you and your men are to go out to battle with me." David replied, "Then you will come to know what your servant can do." "Very well," said Achish, "I will make you my bodyguard for life." Now by this time Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul had removed the mediums and spiritists from the land. The Philistines came together and camped at Shunem, while Saul gathered all Israel and camped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid and trembled violently. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, so I can go and consult her." "There is a medium at Endor," his servants replied. So Saul disguised himself by putting on different clothes, and he set out with 2 of his men. They came to the woman at night, and Saul said, "Consult a spirit for me. Bring up for me the one I name." But the woman replied, "Surely you know what Saul has done, how he has killed the mediums and spiritists in the land. Why have you set a trap to get me killed?" Then Saul swore to her by the Lord, "As surely as the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this." "Whom shall I bring up for you?" the woman asked. "Bring up Samuel," he replied. But when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out in a loud voice and said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." "Do not be afraid," the king replied. "What do you see?" "I see a God coming up out of the earth," the woman answered. "What does he look like?" asked Saul. "An old man is coming up," she replied, "and he is wearing a robe." So Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed face down in reverence. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" "I am deeply distressed," replied Saul. "The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has turned away from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what to do." "Why do you consult me?" asked Samuel, "since the Lord has turned away from you and become your enemy? He has done exactly what he spoke through me. The Lord has torn the kingship out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. Because you did not obey the Lord or carry out his burning anger against Amalek, the Lord has done this to you today. Moreover, the Lord will deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me, and the Lord will deliver the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines." Immediately, Saul fell flat on the ground, terrified by the words of Samuel, and his strength was gone, because he had not eaten anything all that day and night. When the woman came to Saul and saw how distraught he was, she said to him, "Look, your maidservant has obeyed your voice. I took my life in my hands and did as you told me. Now please listen to your servant and let me set a morsel of bread before you, so you may eat and have the strength to go on your way." Saul refused, saying, "I will not eat." But his servants joined the woman in urging him, and he heeded their voice. He got up from the ground and sat on the bed. The woman had a fattened calf at her house, and she quickly slaughtered it. She also took flour, kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread. She served it to Saul and his servants, and they ate. And that night they got up and left. Now the Philistines brought all their forces together at Aphek, while Israel camped by the spring in Jezreel. As the Philistine leaders marched out their units of hundreds and thousands, David and his men marched behind them with Achish. Then the commanders of the Philistines asked, "What about these Hebrews?" Achish replied, "Is this not David, the servant of King Saul of Israel? He has been with me all these days, even years, and from the day he defected until today, I have found no fault in him." But the commanders of the Philistines were angry with Achish and told him, "Send that man back and let him return to the place you assigned him. He must not go down with us into battle only to become our adversary during the war. What better way for him to regain the favor of his master than with the heads of our men? Is this not the David about whom they sing in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." So Achish summoned David and told him, "As surely as the Lord lives, you have been upright in my sight, and it seems right that you should march in and out with me in the army, because I have found no fault in you from the day you came to me until this day. But you have no favor in the sight of the leaders. Therefore turn back now and go in peace, so that you will not do anything to displease the leaders of the Philistines." "But what have I done?" David replied. "What have you found against your servant, from the day I came to you until today, to keep me from going along to fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" Achish replied, "I know that you are as pleasing in my sight as an angel of God, but the commanders of the Philistines have said, 'He must not go into battle with us.' Now then, get up early in the morning, along with your master's servants who came with you, and go as soon as it is light." So David and his men got up early in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. On the third day, David and his men arrived in Ziklag, and the Amalekites had raided the Negev, attacked Ziklag, and burned it down. They had taken captive the women and all who were there, both young and old. They had not killed anyone, but had carried them off as they went on their way. When David and his men came to the city, they found it burned down, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and the troops with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no strength left to weep. David's two wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel, had been taken captive, and David was greatly distressed because the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of every man grieved for his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod." So Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord, "Should I pursue these raiders? Will I overtake them?" "Pursue them," the Lord replied, "for you will surely overtake them and rescue the captives." So David and his 600 men went to the brook of Besor, where some stayed behind because 200 men were too exhausted to cross the brook. But David and 400 men continued in pursuit. Now his men found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David. They gave the man water to drink and food to eat, a piece of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins. So he ate and was revived, for he had not had any food or water for 3 days and 3 nights. Then David asked him, "To whom do you belong, and where are you from?" "I am an Egyptian," he replied, "the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me 3 days ago when I fell ill. We raided the Negev of the Cherethites, the territory of Judah, and the Negev of Caleb, and we burned down Ziklag." "Will you lead me to these raiders?" David asked. And the man replied, "Swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hand of my master, and I will lead you to them." So he led David down, and there were the Amalekites spread out over all the land, eating, drinking, and celebrating the great amount of plunder they had taken from the land of the Philistines and the land of Judah. And David struck them down from twilight until the evening of the next day. Not a man escaped, except 400 young men who fled, riding off on camels. So David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, young or old, son or daughter, or any of the plunder the Amalekites had taken. David brought everything back, and he recovered all the flocks and herds, which his men drove ahead of the other livestock, calling out, "This is David's plunder." When David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him from the brook of Besor, they came out to meet him and the troops with him. As David approached the men, he greeted them, but all the wicked and worthless men among those who had gone with David said, "Because they did not go with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered, except for each man's wife and children. They may take them and go." But David said, "My brothers, you must not do this with what the Lord has given us. He has protected us and delivered into our hands the raiders who came against us. Who will listen to your proposal? The share of the one who went to battle will match the share of the one who stayed with the supplies. They will share alike." And so it has been from that day forward. David established this statute as an ordinance for Israel to this very day. When David arrived in Ziklag, he sent some of the plunder to his friends, the elders of Judah, saying, "Here is a gift for you from the plunder of the Lord's enemies." He sent gifts to those in Bethel, Ramoth Negev, and Jatir, to those in Aroer, Siphmoth, and Eshtemoa, to those in Rakal, and in the cities of the Jerahmeelites and Kenites, to those in Hormah, Bor-Ashan, and Athach, and to those in Hebron, and in all the places where David and his men had roamed. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before them, and many fell slain on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons, and they killed Saul's sons Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua. When the battle intensified against Saul, the archers overtook him and wounded him critically. Then Saul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and run it through me, or these uncircumcised men will come and run me through and torture me." But his armor-bearer was terrified and refused to do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his own sword and died with him. So Saul, his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and all his men died together that same day. When the Israelites along the valley and those on the other side of the Jordan saw that the army of Israel had fled and that Saul and his sons had died, they abandoned their cities and ran away. So the Philistines came and occupied their cities. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the dead, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They cut off Saul's head, stripped off his armor, and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim the news in the temples of their idols and among their people. They put his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreths and hung his body on the wall of Beth-shan. When the people of Jabesh-Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their men of valor set out, journeyed all night, and retrieved the bodies of Saul and his sons from the wall of Beth-shan. When they arrived at Jabesh, they burned the bodies there. Then they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh, and they fasted 7 days.
Okay, you did that. You finished First Samuel. Right on, Saint. Tomorrow we're going to read 2 Samuel, which begins with an introduction to the text and then covers the first few chapters. We're going to be reading from pages 176 to 186. Tune in. Take care. God bless.